All right, so are you ready to really level up those conversation skills? Today we're going to dive deep into how to start conversations. The kind that don't just fizzle out after, just a couple of awkward exchanges.
Right.
And so get our source today. It gives you 25 questions.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. But these aren't your typical small talk questions.
Okay.
They're designed to help you really connect with people on a deeper level.
Okay, so not just how's the weather?
Exactly. Whether you're at, networking event or a party or even just, chatting with someone new at the coffee shop.
I really like how our source today breaks these questions down into 5 categories.
Oh, yeah.
It's like having a roadmap, for all these different conversational situations.
I like that, a roadmap.
Yeah, so you've got your general questions. Those are perfect for the initial icebreakers.
Uh-huh.
And then there are ones specifically for social settings, travel, and hobbies, work, or school, and even fun personal preferences.
Okay, I totally get the whole categorization thing.
Right.
But how does asking someone about their favorite hobby actually lead to a deeper connection?
Yeah.
I mean, sometimes I feel like I'm just going through the motions with these kinds of questions.
Oh, I totally hear you.
Yeah.
But think about it this way. Instead of asking a closed-ended question like, do you have any hobbies?
Right.
Which, you'll probably just get a yes or no.
Yeah.
You could ask something like, what project are you most excited about right now?
Ooh.
And suddenly you're not just asking about hobbies.
Yeah.
You're inviting them to share what they're passionate about.
Oh.
And that's where the magic happens.
I like that it's shifting from a checklist to uncovering what makes someone tick.
Yeah.
And I guess the different categories help you tailor your approach depending on the situation, right?
Exactly. So let's say you're at a networking event.
Okay.
You could try a question from the work or school category, what's the most interesting challenge you faced in your work recently? It's way more engaging than just asking, what do you do?
What's funny is I actually tried that question at a networking event last week.
Oh, yeah.
And the person I was talking to, they totally lit up. They told me this whole story about a project they were working on.
Oh, wow.
And it turned into a really fascinating conversation. We even ended up exchanging contact info.
See?
Yeah.
It works.
It really does.
It's all about, finding those subtle ways to unlock deeper conversations.
Right.
And our source emphasizes that it's not just about the questions themselves.
Right.
It's about how you deliver them.
Oh, right. The source talks about smiling, being friendly, and most importantly, not worrying about making mistakes.
Yeah.
I think that's something we all struggle with.
Oh, for sure.
Especially in new situations,
Right.
We get so caught up in trying to sound perfect
Right.
that we forget to just be ourselves.
Yeah, I think that's such a crucial point.
Mm-hmm.
It's not about flawless execution.
Yeah.
It's about genuine connection.
Right.
People can tell when you're genuinely interested, even if you stumble over your words a bit.
Yeah, I think you're right.
Yeah.
That's a good point.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. It's like that saying, people might forget what you said, but they'll never forget how you made them feel.
Right.
I think that totally applies to conversations too.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
It's all about creating a welcoming space, where people feel like they can open up.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of opening up, the source also talks about the power of open-ended questions.
Mm-hmm.
I'm kind of curious, do you have a favorite example from those 25 questions that really shows this?
Let me think.
Yeah.
Oh, the one that pops into my mind is, what's your dream destination?
Okay.
It's from the travel and hobbies category.
Yeah.
But I think it goes way beyond just travel. It gets at people's hopes and dreams, their sense of adventure.
I see what you mean.
It can spark a conversation about what truly excites them.
Oh, I see what you mean. It's not just about where they want to go on vacation. It's like a window into their inner world.
Exactly.
And you could adapt that to other areas too, right?
Oh, yeah.
What's a skill you'd love to learn someday?
Exactly. It invites them to share something they might not normally talk about.
Yeah, I feel like I get stuck asking the same old questions sometimes.
Oh, yeah.
How was your weekend? Or what are you working on? It's I'm on autopilot.
Yeah.
And the conversation never goes anywhere interesting.
Yeah, I think we've all been there.
Yeah.
It's easy to fall back on those default questions, especially when you're feeling nervous.
Right.
But what I love about this source is that it gives you a way to break out of that rut.
Yeah.
To think more carefully about your questions and what you really want to learn about the other person.
So true. It's not about memorizing a script or something. It's
Right.
about having a strategy.
Exactly.
Oh, and the source also mentions active listening.
Yes.
What does that mean to you, like when you're starting conversations?
Well, for me, active listening is about being present.
Okay.
It's not just hearing their words, but truly absorbing, what they're saying, paying attention to their body language, and responding in a way that shows you're engaged.
So it's not just about asking the right questions.
Right.
It's about making the other person feel heard.
Exactly. You're creating a space where they feel understood.
Okay, so it's like building a bridge of understanding.
Yes, I like that.
Each question is like a stepping stone.
Yeah.
And active listening is what holds it all together.
I love that analogy. And it reminds us that conversation is a two-way street.
Right. It's about giving and receiving, asking and listening.
Exactly. And when both people are present and engaged,
Yeah.
that's when you get those like real moments of connection.
Those aha moments.
Yes, you don't get those from small talk.
Okay, so I'm sold. These 25 questions are way more powerful than I thought.
I know, right?
But I gotta ask.
Yeah.
Do you think there are times when a simple, direct question is better than an open-ended one?
That's a great question.
Yeah.
And you're right. There are times when a direct question is more appropriate.
Okay.
Like if you need a specific piece of information or you're trying to clarify something.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, when you're trying to build rapport,
Right.
open-ended questions are the way to go.
Makes sense. You got to use the right tool for the job.
Exactly. And sometimes it's about being playful with your questions, too.
No, yeah.
Don't be afraid to add a little humor,
You know, the source has this question in the fun category that always cracks me up.
Oh, yeah?
It's, what's the most embarrassing song you secretly love?
Oh, that's a good one.
I know, right?
It's guaranteed to get people laughing.
And sharing stories.
Yeah, it's a great way to break the ice.
Exactly. It shows you don't take yourself too seriously.
Right, because in the end, conversations are about connecting with other people.
Yeah.
And sometimes the best way to do that is to just let loose and have fun.
Yeah. I love that. I feel like we've covered so much in this deep dive.
I know, right?
Like my whole view on how to start conversations has like totally shifted.
It's pretty cool how something so simple, like asking the right questions,
Right.
can make such a big difference in how we connect with people.
Totally. So as we wrap up here,
Yeah.
what are like the main takeaways you'd want our listeners to remember?
Well, first of all, those categories.
Yeah.
Remember those having like a mental toolkit of questions for all those different situations?
Yeah.
That can really help you feel more confident.
I like that.
No matter what the conversation throws at you.
It's like having a secret weapon for those moments, when you just go blank.
Exactly. And don't forget about the magic of open-ended questions.
Oh, right.
Those are key to like really getting those deep conversations going,
Yeah. It's about asking questions that get people to share their stories and their passions.
Yes. Their unique perspectives.
And of course, we can't forget about active listening.
Well, that's so important.
It's like the glue that holds it all together.
Yeah, it lets you build those real connections.
It's amazing how much we can learn about someone when we really listen to what they have to say.
I know, it's true. So before we go, I want to leave you with something to think about.
Okay.
Think about the last time you had a really great conversation. The kind that you just felt so engaged in.
Yeah.
What made it so memorable? Was it a certain question? Or the way the other person listened?
Yeah.
When we think back on our own experiences,
Right.
we can learn even more about how to have amazing conversations.
That's such a good point. We're always learning,
We are.
So go out there, experiment with these questions, and most importantly, have fun connecting with people.
Happy conversing.
All right. Ready to unlock some serious word power?
Oh, yeah?
We're taking a deep dive
Absolutely.
into 15 words
Okay.
that can make your English seriously sing. Think Shakespeare, but way less frilly collar,
Right. Not stuffy.
Yeah, exactly.
Not pretentious at all.
No, not at all. These are words that once you know them,
Yeah.
you can really use them to make your communication better,
It's true.
more interesting. So our source material is an article. It's called 15 Words for Outstanding English.
Okay.
But we're going to go deeper than that, right?
Absolutely.
We're going to figure out how to really use these words. So first up is perspicacious. They describe it as insightful, perceptive, like a detective cracking a case wide open.
I like that.
But what makes this more than just,
Right.
smart?
Being smart.
Yeah.
Well, I think it's that ability to see what others miss.
Okay.
So a perspicacious person doesn't just gather the information, connect the dots, they really understand
Right.
the why behind the what.
I see. So it's not just about noticing stuff. It's about...
It's the insight, yeah.
Uh-huh. Okay.
Think about, a leader who can predict market trends or something.
Ooh, or a friend.
Yeah.
Who just gives amazing advice.
Yeah, like really on point advice.
Wow, okay.
Yeah.
That's way more interesting than just being observant, like you said.
Yeah, insightful is really the key here.
The article gives the example. Her perspicacious comments during the meeting showed her deep understanding of the project.
Okay.
I mean, that sounds like someone who's about to get a promotion.
That's right.
Right.
Exactly. And it's not just about business.
Yeah.
It's relevant in any field. I mean,
for sure.
A perspicacious historian can reframe our view of the past. A perspicacious artist picks up on those subtle emotions.
I see.
We might not even realize we're expressing.
Yeah.
It's really powerful stuff.
Okay, all right. Now this next word, obfuscate.
Ooh. Obfuscate.
This one sounds a little more like villainous, right?
True.
Like a bad guy.
A little bit sneaky.
Yeah.
The obfuscate is to deliberately make something unclear.
Okay.
Muddy the waters, so to speak.
Yeah.
The article's example talks about like a lawyer trying to obfuscate the facts to confuse a jury.
Right. It's almost like a verbal smokescreen.
Yeah.
Just to kind of throw people off.
Exactly.
But I mean, it's not always about being like intentionally deceptive.
Good point.
Is it?
No, sometimes people obfuscate without realizing it.
Oh, interesting.
Have you ever been stuck listening to someone explain something simple in the most complicated way possible?
Yes.
They might be unintentionally obfuscating.
Okay.
Yeah.
So the key here is to be aware of when we're doing it.
Right.
Right.
Exactly.
Yeah, nobody wants to be that person in the meeting. So how about something a little lighter?
Okay, yeah.
Ubiquitous. This one feels very relevant to our world right now. It does. Like the modern world.
It means found everywhere.
Okay.
Literally.
Literally everywhere.
Yeah.
I like it.
The article talks about the ubiquitous smell of coffee in Paris.
Ooh.
Which
for anyone who's been, it's spot on.
Spot on.
But think beyond the physical.
Yeah.
Like what's ubiquitous?
Yeah, what's
your world?
Ubiquitous in your world right now?
Oh, easy. Social media trends.
Ooh, yes.
They pop up.
Yeah.
Everyone's talking about them. Then poof.
Gone.
Replaced by the next big thing.
They're so fleeting.
It's fascinating and exhausting all at once.
Yes.
Yes.
I agree.
Yeah.
And that fleeting nature, that's key to understanding ephemeral.
Yeah.
Our next word.
Okay.
It's about things that are beautiful, but temporary.
I like that.
Like cherry blossoms in bloom.
Beautiful. Or viral trends, as you said.
Yeah, exactly.
The article says the beauty of the cherry blossoms is ephemeral, lasting only a week.
I know.
It makes you realize, like, how precious those moments are.
It's true.
Like, you really have to be present, knowing it's not going to last forever.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
And you can apply that to more than just tangible things. Feelings can be ephemeral, too.
Oh, wow.
Like that rush of excitement when you start a new project, or even the kind of bittersweet nostalgia of remembering childhood summers.
Ooh, deep thoughts happening over here.
I know, right?
Now, I gotta admit, discombobulate is just plain fun to say.
Discombobulate.
It sounds like what happens after one too many spins on a merry-go-round.
It does, doesn't it? It does, yeah.
The dictionary definition is to confuse or bewilder.
Right.
But there's almost a playful clumsiness to it.
I agree.
That I kind of like.
I like that too.
The article uses the example of being discombobulated by like a tough interview question, which, I mean, we've all been there, right?
Oh, we've all been there.
But wouldn't you say there's a difference between being discombobulated and being straight up panicked?
Absolutely.
Right.
Yeah. Because discombobulation is more of a temporary state of like, what just happened? It's like your brain needs a moment to catch up.
Yeah. So it's not always a bad thing.
No, not at all.
Sometimes a little discombobulation can be invigorating.
Perhaps, yeah.
Right.
It can shake us out of our routine, force us to think differently.
Oh, I like that.
And that leads us perfectly into our next word.
Okay.
Which embodies this idea of surprise in a very positive way.
Ooh. Okay.
Serendipity.
Ooh, serendipity. I love that word.
It's a good one.
It's like stumbling on a hidden treasure when you least expect it.
You got it.
The article talks about the serendipity of like finding a beautiful spot while hiking.
Okay, yeah.
But it can be so much more than that, right?
It can, absolutely.
Yeah.
Serendipity is about those lucky coincidences that shape our lives in unexpected ways.
Yeah.
Meeting a future partner, discovering a new passion. Those moments where it feels like the universe is conspiring in your favor.
Oh, I love that.
Yeah.
I think what makes serendipity so delightful is that we can't control it.
Right.
It just happens.
Yeah.
And we get to enjoy the ride.
Exactly.
Speaking of enjoying the ride,
okay,
let's talk about voracious.
Ooh, voracious.
It's a word often associated with reading.
Right.
But it applies to anything we approach with, like intense enthusiasm.
That's right.
The article gives the example of someone who's a voracious reader, finishing 3 books a week.
Wow.
I admire that kind of dedication.
Yeah.
But wouldn't you say voracious goes beyond just
I think so.
quantity?
Absolutely.
Right.
It's about that hunger, that intense desire to consume and experience whatever it is you're passionate about.
Yeah. Yeah, whether it's
knowledge, travel.
Right, or even, dare I say, podcasts.
Maybe.
Right.
Podcasts.
Now, wouldn't that be a compliment?
That would
To be known as a voracious listener.
A voracious listener.
Of the deep dive.
Of the deep dive. That's what we want. That's right.
Okay.
So, speaking of aspirations.
Yes.
Let's talk about eloquent.
Ooh, eloquent.
Yeah. This word kind of embodies the ideal of expressing oneself beautifully and persuasively.
The article uses the example of, like, a speech so eloquent it moves the audience to tears.
Okay.
But it's not just about grand gestures, right?
Right.
Can't everyday conversations be eloquent?
They can. Of course, yeah.
Yeah.
Because eloquence isn't about flowery language or trying to sound smart.
Right.
It's about choosing your words carefully to convey your meaning with clarity and passion, maybe even a touch of poetry.
Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
So it's about being intentional.
It is.
With our language, even
in casual
settings.
Yeah, that's something I think we can all work on.
We can all work on that.
Right. Yeah.
For sure. And as we become more eloquent, we open up new possibilities for connection, understanding.
Yeah.
Even, dare I say, a touch of magic.
Ooh.
In our everyday lives.
I like where this is going.
I know, right?
And luckily, we have even more words to uncover.
We do.
Stay tuned.
Yes.
Because in the next part of our deep dive, we'll be exploring words that delve into the complexities of human nature.
Okay.
Emotions.
Yeah.
Maybe even a few paradoxes.
Ooh, paradoxes.
Along the way.
I'm excited.
So stick around. Welcome back to the deep dive.
It's amazing.
We're knee-deep in fascinating words here.
I know, right?
Exploring how they can help us communicate better.
Absolutely.
And now I'm ready to tackle some of these words that deal with, shall we say, less flattering aspects of human nature. All right, let's do it.
Up first, we have sycophant.
Ah, yes, the flatterer. The yes man, the person who praises insincerely to gain favor.
Right.
The article says a sycophant might tell you your new haircut looks great, even if they secretly think it's a disaster.
Yeah, that's rough.
I know.
But isn't there a fine line between being polite and being a sycophant?
Yeah.
Like, what if I genuinely do like your new haircut?
It's all about intention.
Okay.
A sincere compliment comes from a place of genuine appreciation.
Right.
Sycophancy is all about manipulation.
Oh, okay.
About saying what you think someone wants to hear to get something in return.
So it's about being aware of those underlying motives.
Exactly.
Are we trying to build someone up, or are we just trying to butter them up?
Exactly. Butter them up.
And speaking of being aware of underlying motives, our next word is a bit of a head scratcher. Paradoxical.
Paradoxical.
It refers to those situations that seem contradictory, but might actually contain a hidden truth.
Oh, interesting.
The example they use is, it's paradoxical that the more connected we are online, the lonelier some people feel.
Yeah, that's true.
It's like, how can those two things coexist?
That's the beauty of a paradox.
Right.
It forces us to question our assumptions and dig deeper.
Okay.
On the surface, constant connection should mean less loneliness.
Right.
But maybe it's the quality, not the quantity of those connections that matters most.
That's a good point. It's like having 1,000 Facebook friends.
Right.
But still feeling like you have no one to call when you're down.
Exactly. And that leads us to a word that describes a potential solution.
Okay.
To that feeling of isolation. Cathartic.
Oh, cathartic.
It's about releasing pent-up emotions.
Right.
In a healthy way.
Yeah.
Think of crying during a sad movie.
Uh-huh.
Or writing in a journal.
Right. The article mentions that writing in a journal every night was a cathartic experience for someone.
It's like purging those emotions onto the page so they don't stay bottled up inside.
Yeah, and catharsis can come from any activity, right, that allows us to process and release those emotions.
It could be dancing, singing, creating art, even having a heart-to-heart conversation with a trusted friend.
It's like giving ourselves permission to feel those feelings fully so we can move through them and come out the other side.
Exactly. And sometimes what helps us move through those feelings is the realization that we're not alone.
Oh, okay.
And that's where our next word comes in.
All right.
Myriad.
Myriad, okay.
It signifies an abundance, a vast number of something.
Right.
The example the article gives is there are myriad reasons why climate change needs immediate attention. Wow. It really underscores the urgency and the complexity of the issue.
But myriad can also be used in a more
personal way.
Yeah.
Think of the myriad experiences that shape us, the myriad choices we make each day, the myriad people whose lives intersect with our own.
It makes you realize like how interconnected we all are. And maybe that's a comforting thought, knowing we're all navigating this vast, complex world together.
Right.
Speaking of navigating the world,
let's
talk about a word that embodies the essence of something.
Right.
Quintessential.
Quintessential?
It's like capturing the soul of something in its purest form.
That's right.
The article mentions a dish being the quintessential Italian meal.
Right. But how do we apply that?
Right. Exactly. How do we
say more abstract?
Yeah, like a personality trait.
Like a personality trait.
Yeah.
Think of someone you'd consider the quintessential optimist.
Okay.
They radiate positivity, always see the silver lining.
Right.
Lift everyone's spirits.
Right.
They embody the very essence of optimism.
So it's about identifying those core qualities that define something.
Exactly. A person, a place, or even an idea.
Yeah. Okay. I like that.
Right.
And that brings us to a word that describes a quality I think we could all use a little more of in the world. Magnanimous.
Magnanimous.
It's about being generous, forgiving, and rising above pettiness.
I like that.
Especially when you have the upper hand.
Especially when you have the upper hand.
The article talks about a magnanimous gesture of like donating winnings to charity.
Right.
It's about acting with kindness and compassion.
Yeah.
Even when you don't have to.
Even when you don't have to, that's right.
It's a powerful word.
It is.
Because it suggests like certain nobility of spirit.
Think of a leader who, even after winning a hard-fought election, extends an olive branch to their opponent.
Ooh, that's good.
Or a friend who forgives a betrayal and moves forward with grace.
Okay, that's a high bar.
It is a high bar.
But I love the idea of like striving for that level of magnanimity.
Absolutely.
In our interactions with others.
In our everyday lives.
Right.
Yeah.
And finally, we come to a word that I think perfectly encapsulates the human experience.
Right.
Ineffable.
Ineffable.
Yeah.
This one always gives me chills.
I know, right?
It's about those moments
that are so powerful, so profound that words just can't do them justice.
Right.
The article mentions the ineffable beauty of the Northern Lights.
Yes.
Like
it's about those experiences that touch us on a soul level.
Yeah.
That feeling of awe when gazing at the stars.
Right.
The overwhelming love for a child.
Yeah.
The deep grief of losing someone dear.
It's like our language, as vast as it is, sometimes reaches its limits.
It does.
And maybe that's okay.
Maybe that's okay.
Maybe some things are meant to be felt rather than explained.
Yeah, perhaps that's the ultimate lesson here. Language is a powerful tool, but it's not the only tool we have for connecting with the world and each other.
Okay, I'm feeling all introspective now.
A little bit.
But before we get too lost in the ineffable, we have one last word to tackle.
We do.
In our next segment. It's a word that's often used to describe those who possess outstanding English.
Right.
But it can also be a bit of a double-edged sword.
Ooh, a double-edged sword.
Stay tuned to find out what it is. Welcome back to the Deep Dive, word nerds. We've journeyed through words for perceptiveness, fleeting beauty, and even those tricky paradoxes of human nature.
Oh, yeah.
And now for our final word.
Okay.
We're tackling one that's often used to describe those who have, like, a mastery of language.
Okay.
Articulate.
Articulate. It's a word that carries a certain weight, doesn't it?
It does.
To be articulate is to express oneself clearly and effectively, whether through spoken or written word.
The article highlights how someone's articulate arguments can, like, sway a debate.
Okay, yeah.
But it also mentions that the word can be used to subtly reinforce societal biases.
That's an important point to consider.
Right.
Who gets praised for being articulate? And who gets dismissed or overlooked? It's not always about who has the best ideas, but about who has the power and privilege to be heard.
So while articulate can be a compliment, it's important to be aware of the context.
The context.
And the potential biases at play.
Right, exactly.
It's like we've been saying throughout this whole deep dive. Words have power.
They do.
And how we use them matters.
And how we use them matters. It all comes back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah.
We've explored 15 words today.
We have.
Each with its own unique shade of meaning and potential impact.
Right.
But the real takeaway isn't about memorizing definitions.
No.
It's about becoming more conscious, more intentional,
Yeah.
more artful in how we use language.
It's like we've been given this new set of tools, and now it's up to us to use them wisely.
Wisely, yes.
To build bridges.
To build bridges.
Rather than walls.
Yes.
To express ourselves authentically.
Authentically.
And to listen deeply.
To the voices of others.
Deeply, that's right.
And maybe, just maybe, as we become more skilled with words, we can create a world where everyone has the opportunity to be heard.
To be heard.
Understood. Understood.
And valued.
And valued.
For the unique perspectives.
Absolutely.
They bring to the conversation.
That's a beautiful thought to end on.
It is. It is.
So to our listeners out there,
yes,
what are your takeaways from this deep dive?
What really resonated with you? Which words resonated with you the most? And how do you plan to use them?
How are you going to use them?
In your own life.
Yeah. We encourage you to keep exploring.
Yeah.
Keep questioning.
Keep playing.
And keep playing with language.
Yes.
Because the more we understand the power of words, the better equipped we are to use them for good.
And who knows, maybe you'll even discover a few new favorite words.
Some new favorites.
Along the way.
Along the way, hit us up on social media.
Yes.
Share your thoughts, your stories.
Let us know.
Your word nerd adventures.
Yes, we want to hear it all.
Until next time.
Keep those words flowing.
Keep those words flowing. Hey everyone, ready for another deep dive? Today we're looking into something really interesting. It's hidden fluency. Those signs that you're actually way better at English than you think.
That's a good one.
We found this article and it's called 14 Signs You're More Fluent in English Than You Think. And honestly, some of these are pretty surprising. I had no idea.
Yeah, you know, we always think of fluency as this perfect thing, but this article looks at it differently.
Yeah.
Like how well you actually communicate, not just, perfect grammar and all that.
Yeah, that's what I liked about it. It's like real world stuff, not just textbook rules.
Yeah.
So, where do we even start with these 14 signs?
Well, a bunch of them are kind of connected, so we can group them up. Like, have you ever watched a movie no subtitles or anything, and you still got what was going on, even if you didn't get every single word.
All the time. Wait, does that actually mean something about fluency? The article says it's like you're understanding the context, which is super important for communication. Like you're picking up on clues, not just the words themselves.
Yeah.
The situation, the other people, how they're talking.
Right. That makes sense. It's kind of like when someone uses a word you don't know, but you figure it out from the rest of what they're saying.
Exactly. Or even reading an article with some tough vocabulary. You get the main idea without looking up everything. The article says that's another sign.
So it's not about knowing every word, it's how you use the ones you do know.
Yeah. And this connects to another interesting thing. As you get more fluent, you might not be translating everything in your head anymore.
What? Really? I don't even realize I'm doing that.
It gets so automatic you don't notice. Like ordering food at a restaurant. Are you translating the whole menu before you talk?
No way. I just look and order what I want.
See? That probably means you're thinking in English already, which is like a big fluency thing.
Wow, this is making me rethink my whole English level. I didn't know these little things. Could be such a big deal.
I know, right?
Yeah.
And it gets even cooler. The article says even how you think in English changes. Like when you're planning stuff or making sentences in your head.
Instead of thinking it in my own language first, I just think it in English now.
Exactly. It means you're so comfortable with it. It's becoming natural.
This is awesome. I'm already seeing these signs in myself. What else does the article talk about?
Well, we can't forget about idioms and slang. Right?
Oh, I love a good idiom. They're so fun.
And the article says understanding and using them shows you really get the nuances of English. It's not just the words, it's the culture and the meaning behind them.
Yeah, like break the ice doesn't mean literally breaking ice. It means making things more relaxed, starting the conversation.
Exactly. And being able to not just understand, but USE those idioms. Shows you're going way beyond basic stuff. It's like a deeper level.
Okay, so we got understanding the situation, thinking in English, and using idioms and slang. 3 hidden signs already. What's next?
Let's get into how we actually talk in English. This might surprise you. The article says not overthinking your answers and even using filler words can actually be signs of fluency.
Wait, what? I thought filler words were bad,
It's totally natural, especially for native speakers. Think about it. When you chat with a friend, do you plan every word before you say it?
No way. It's all about the flow.
Right. So if you can answer naturally without overthinking it, and maybe throw in some ums and likes, it could mean you're comfortable, like a native speaker.
That's such a relief. I always feel bad when I use those words, but maybe it's not that big of a deal.
Maybe not. But of course, it's all about balance. They should help your flow, not hurt it.
Right. That makes sense. What else about conversations does the article talk about?
This is interesting. It gets into humor and abstract topics. Those can be hard, even for people who are pretty fluent.
Oh yeah, I remember struggling with English humor. I never got the jokes.
Well, think about it. Humor isn't just the words. It's the culture, the tone, all these little things. So understanding it means you're fluent on a deeper level.
And what about abstract topics, like philosophy and stuff?
The article says being able to talk about those big ideas means you have really good skills. It's not just describing things.
Yeah.
It's expressing complex thoughts.
That makes sense. When you're talking about something abstract, you have to be more careful with your words.
Exactly. And you know what? They even have a joke example in the article.
Oh, a joke. I love jokes. Tell me.
Why don't skeletons fight each other? They don't have the guts.
I get it. Skeletons don't have guts, so they can't fight. It's funny because guts means courage, too.
Exactly. You understood the joke perfectly, which means you're getting those subtle things. It's not just knowing the words, it's understanding how they're used in a funny way.
Wow, I'm seeing fluency in a whole new light. We talked about context thinking in English. Idioms, slang filler, words, humor, abstract topics. So much already. What else is there?
There's more. The article talks about writing, understanding different accents, and most importantly, having the confidence to just go for it. But I think that's a lot for now. Maybe we let it all sink in and come back for the next part of our deep dive.
Sounds good. This is giving me so much to think about. Can't wait for the next part. Okay, we're back and ready for more hidden fluency. My mind is still blown from all those signs we talked about.
Yeah, there's a lot more. We're going through this article. 14 signs you're more fluent in English than you think. And we've got some really cool stuff to cover still.
Hit me with it. What else is there?
Well, we were talking about communication, right? Like those moments when things get tricky.
You mean like when you're trying to explain something and the other person just doesn't get it?
Exactly. The article says even those situations can show how fluent you are. If you can handle misunderstandings without freaking out, that's a good sign.
So it's not just about speaking perfectly, it's about knowing how to fix things when you need to.
Yeah. They say it's about being able to rephrase things, explain it differently, maybe use simpler words if they're not understanding you. It's all about keeping the conversation going.
That's true. I used to get so nervous when I had to explain myself. But I've gotten better at it over time. Maybe that's a fluency thing too.
It probably is. The more fluent you are, the more confident you feel, even when things don't go perfectly.
So handling misunderstandings, that's a sign of fluency. Interesting. What else is there about communication?
The article talks about changing your tone depending on who you're talking to.
Oh, yeah. You wouldn't talk to your boss the same way you talk to your friend.
Exactly. Being able to change your tone, how you say things, your words, that shows you really get how to communicate in different situations.
It's like reading the room and knowing how to act right.
Yeah. It's being socially smart with the language. Yeah. They even give examples in the article, like how you would greet a friend versus how you would start a work meeting.
It's crazy how those little things make such a difference. Okay, so far we've got understanding the situation, thinking in English, idioms, slang, talking naturally with those filler words, understanding humor, abstract topics, handling misunderstandings, and changing our tone. Did I miss anything?
Wow, you got it all. We're making good progress through these 14 signs, but we're not done yet. The article also talks about writing in English, understanding different accents, and the most important thing, having the confidence to just use your English.
Okay, let's talk writing. I think a lot of people get more nervous about writing than speaking. It feels so much more serious.
I get it. Writing is different. But the article says if you can write emails or messages naturally, without checking every grammar rule, that's actually a big deal.
So it's not about being perfect. It's about expressing yourself clearly.
Exactly. They give this example of a casual email to a coworker. Hi, Sarah. Just following up on the report. Let me know if you need anything else. Single to the point, gets the job done.
I like that. It's not about trying to sound super fancy. It's about using writing to communicate.
Right. Which brings us to understanding different accents. That can be tough.
Oh, yeah. When I first started watching British TV shows, I needed subtitles to understand anything.
That happens to a lot of people.
Yeah.
But being able to understand different accents, whether it's British, American, Australian, whatever, it shows you have really good listening skills.
So it's not just about speaking, it's about understanding all the different ways people say it.
Yeah. It's a super useful skill, especially these days when we talk to people from all over the world. The article even talks about watching shows like Sherlock with those British accents, or Friends with the American accents, and being able to understand them without a problem.
You know what? Now that you mention it, I can watch those shows without subtitles now. Maybe I am more fluent than I thought.
That's awesome. Sounds like you're improving without even realizing it.
And that brings us to the last sign we'll talk about today, confidence. This one's really important.
Well, definitely. I think a lot of people are scared to speak English because they don't feel confident. That's why this article is so good. It says fluency isn't about being perfect. It's about being comfortable enough to use your English, even if you make mistakes sometimes.
That makes me feel better. It's okay to mess up a little as long as you're communicating right.
Right. They have this example of someone correcting themselves while they're talking. Like yesterday I go to the park. I just went to the park. The point is they fixed the mistake and kept going.
It's like it's okay to be human. We're not robots. Fluency is about connecting with people.
Exactly. It's about using English to build relationships, share ideas, and experience the world.
This whole conversation has been so eye-opening, but it feels like we've only scratched the surface.
There's definitely more to talk about. But I think it's good to let all this sink in for a bit. And then we can come back for the last part of our deep dive and wrap it all up.
That sounds like a plan. I can't wait to see what else we uncover. All right, we're back for the final part of our deep dive into hidden fluency.
It's amazing how much we learned about how we use English, isn't it?
I know. It's like we've been fluent all along, but we didn't even realize it. So now what? What do we do with all this new information?
Well, that's where the last part of this article gets really interesting. It's not just about knowing the signs. It's about how we think about our fluency, like shifting our mindset from what we're bad at to what we're good at.
I like that. So what kind of advice do they give?
First, they say to just think about your journey with English. Like, where did you start and how far have you come? All those milestones.
Yeah, it's so easy to forget about all the progress we've made. We're always focused on what's next.
I know. But celebrating those wins, even the small ones, can really help us keep going. The article also says to look for chances to use English in real life, like talking to friends, watching movies, reading stuff. and notice how much you need help.
So it's about putting ourselves out there and just using the language.
Exactly. The more you do it, the more you'll realize you can actually do it. You can talk to people, understand things, express yourself. It's about focusing on what you can do.
I love that. It takes the pressure off of being perfect.
Right. And even celebrating those little wins is important. Like if you understood a movie without subtitles, or explained something complicated in English, or had a good conversation with a native speaker, those are all wins.
It's like giving ourselves credit for how much we've learned.
Yeah. And this next one is super important. Don't compare yourself to others.
Oh, that's so hard, though. It's easy to look at other people and feel bad.
I know it's tempting. But everyone learns differently. We all have different strengths and weaknesses. The article says to focus on your journey and your goals.
That's good advice. It's like we're all running our own race.
Exactly. And fluency isn't about reaching some finish line. It's about using English to connect with people, share your thoughts, and see the world.
This whole deep dive has been so cool. I feel like I understand fluency in a totally new way.
That's great to hear.
Yeah.
And that's the message I want you to take away. Fluency is a journey. It's about always learning and growing, but it's also about appreciating how far you've come already.
I like that. Before we finish, I want to leave our listeners with something to think about.
Good idea.
Yeah.
How about this? What's one thing about your English fluency that you want to work on?
That's a great question. It makes people think about what they're good at and what they want to improve.
Yeah. And there's no right or wrong answer. Maybe it's idioms or feeling more confident or understanding different accents. It's all about choosing your own path.
So true. Well, that's it for our deep dive into hidden fluency. Thanks for joining us. We hope you learned something new about your own English skills.
And remember, fluency is a journey, not a destination. Keep practicing and keep celebrating your wins.
We'll see you next time for another deep dive. All right, so tonight we're going to be diving into a case. The missing necklace at the Grand Hotel.
Ooh, a classic.
Yeah. So picture this, the Diamond Gala. A night of, just total extravagance, elegance at the luxurious Grand Hotel.
Fancy.
But amidst the, all the beautiful gowns and the dazzling jewels, there's a chilling discovery.
Uh-oh. What happened?
Lady Eleanor's priceless diamond necklace has vanished.
Oh, no.
Yeah, so we're going to be breaking this whole case down together, just like a team of detectives.
Love that. And you know what's so interesting about this case in particular is the setup. It's that classic locked room mystery.
Ooh, I love those.
Yeah, so the theft, it appears to have happened in this secure location, seemingly impossible to breach,
Right.
It's like a puzzle box,
Yeah.
It just begs us to examine every single detail, every motive.
Absolutely. And the best part is you get to be our partner in solving this crime.
Yes.
We're going to walk you through all the evidence, introduce you to the suspects, reveal their alibis. It's so fun.
Think of it as your own personal detective training.
Yes.
All from, the comfort of wherever you're listening.
Exactly. And, even though this is, obviously a fictional mystery, the techniques that we're going to use to unravel it, they can actually sharpen your real-world critical thinking skills.
Mm-hmm.
We're going to be looking for clues, questioning motives, analyzing alibis, just like a real detective would.
Yeah, it's like a workout for your brain.
Totally.
So let's set the stage a little bit. So it's the Diamond Gala at the Grand Hotel.
Mm-hmm.
Like we said, just dripping with opulence, secrets. Among the esteemed guests is Lady Eleanor, known for her, exquisite jewelry collection.
She's got great taste.
Oh yeah, top notch. So tonight she's showcasing a diamond necklace of incredible value, historical significance. This thing is a big deal.
It's a big deal, yeah. And that detail right there, that is crucial because it instantly establishes motive, the sheer worth of this necklace, it just makes it this irresistible target for any thief. Yeah, everyone's looking at it.
Exactly.
So now this is where our three main suspects kind of come into play. Each of them was near Lady Eleanor's room on that fateful night. We've got Sarah, the maid.
Okay.
Mr. Collins, a guest at the hotel.
Okay.
And the kind of ever so composed Mr. Thomas, the butler.
Oh, the butler.
Yeah. So now each of these suspects, they have an alibi, at least initially.
Right.
So let's start with Sarah, the maid. Her statement, very short, to the point, I didn't go inside the room. I only cleaned the hallway and left.
It sounds kind of rehearsed,
Yep.
She's trying to distance herself. What do you think?
Yeah, it's almost a little too perfect.
Yeah, exactly.
She's trying a little too hard.
Yeah.
And then there's Mr. Collins, the guest. His alibi is very specific. He says, I was in my room the whole time working on my laptop.
Oh, interesting. See, that feels a bit over-explained to me. Just like, why is he going above and beyond to create this solid alibi?
Like he's trying to be very memorable, like, this is what I was doing.
Exactly.
So, and finally, we have Mr. Thomas, the butler. He states, I was only delivering drinks to the other guests. I had no reason to enter her room.
Ooh, interesting. See, he's emphasizing his duties, like lack of motive.
Yeah.
Playing that role of the dutiful, invisible servant.
Yeah, just doing his job.
Exactly.
But remember, these are just their initial statements, the real work. It begins with examining the physical evidence, those silent witnesses that can tell like a completely different story.
Oh, I love that. The silent witnesses. So good.
They don't lie. So that brings us to the clues uncovered by our fictional investigator, Detective Jones.
Okay.
The first clue, the jewelry box was locked, but the lock, it had been forced open.
Okay, so that immediately tells us that the thief likely didn't have a key.
Right.
And that narrows down our suspect list considerably, doesn't it?
It does. So who do you think, like, based on this clue alone, we can rule out? Take a moment to consider the suspects, and their potential access to a key. Now, the second clue Detective Jones finds is a muddy footprint on the carpet near the balcony door.
What? Ooh.
What do you make of that?
Okay, well, that raises a fascinating possibility. Could the thief have entered from, like, outside, using the balcony?
Interesting.
I mean, this throws a wrench into that whole locked room, aspect. It suggests maybe like a more daring, elaborate heist.
It's getting exciting.
It is.
And finally, the third clue, a tiny scrap of red fabric snagged on the edge of the window.
Ooh, what?
Could this be from the thief's clothing?
That's the question, right? I mean, it's such a seemingly, like, insignificant detail, but it could be crucial,
Right.
If we can, like, figure out where that came from, it could link us directly to the culprit.
Absolutely. So, all right. So we've laid out the initial facts of the case. We've got our three suspects, each with their own alibi, and three pretty intriguing clues. A forced lock, a muddy footprint, and a, mysterious scrap of red fabric. So what are your initial thoughts? Do any of the suspect stories seem a little less convincing now?
So we've got our clues, right? We've got our suspects. What happens next? What does Detective Jones do with all this information?
Well, he does. Like any good detective, he doesn't just jump to conclusions.
Right.
He uses these clues to kind of guide his next round of questioning.
Yeah.
Carefully observing, the suspect's reactions, looking for those telltale signs of guilt, deception, So
it's not just the words they're saying, but like how they say them.
Exactly.
Their body language, their tone of voice, like all that can be just as revealing as any physical evidence.
Precisely. And this is where things like really get fascinating,
Right.
So remember Sarah, the maid, who gave that quick, almost rehearsed denial?
So when she's questioned further, about the balcony, that muddy footprint, she becomes increasingly flustered, just vehemently denying ever being, near that area.
That's interesting. It seems like the more Detective Jones presses her, the more defensive she gets.
Right.
Almost like she's trying way too hard to prove that she's innocent.
Exactly. And then you have Mr. Collins, the guest, who, claimed to be engrossed in work.
Right.
When he's confronted with these clues, he becomes visibly agitated, like his carefully constructed alibi. It's just crumbling, like under pressure.
Oh, wow.
He insists, he heard nothing unusual that night. But I don't know, there's something about his nervousness, like it just betrays a very different story, you know what I mean?
It's like he's trying to keep up this facade of calm, but underneath it all, you can just, sense the panic, the fear that maybe he's going to get caught.
Yeah, exactly.
So then there's Mr. Thomas, the butler. He, throughout this whole investigation, remains remarkably composed, almost, like aloof. He even offers an explanation for that red fabric, pointing out that his uniform could be a potential source.
Wow. That's pretty clever, He's not denying the possibility, but he's like offering this plausible explanation.
Yeah.
Deflecting suspicion without directly like contradicting the evidence.
It's subtle but very effective.
It is. It plays perfectly into his role.
Yeah.
As that seemingly insignificant butler, like blending into the background, observing everything, but rarely drawing attention to himself.
Yeah, just kind of part of the furniture almost.
Exactly.
So let's pause here for a moment. Let's analyze these reactions with the clues that we have. So we've got Sarah, whose denials are becoming more and more frantic. We've got Mr. Collins, whose nervousness is, you can practically like feel it.
I know, right.
And then there's Mr. Thomas, who, he just seems almost too calm, too prepared.
Right.
So if you were Detective Jones, what would stand out to you the most? Which reaction would pique your interest?
That's the question.
And remember, even the absence of a reaction, that can be a reaction in itself.
Ooh, that's deep. I like that.
This is where those detective skills come in handy. Reading between the lines, observing those subtle cues, piecing the puzzle together. And sometimes those most unassuming details can have like the greatest significance. Like that muddy footprint, for instance.
Yeah, that footprint's particularly intriguing, right?
Yeah.
Because it directly contradicts that locked room element.
Yeah.
Like, it suggests that maybe the thief bypassed all those traditional entry points and used, a more unconventional route, like the balcony.
And if we think about who might have access to the balcony, the list of suspects gets a lot smaller.
Exactly. It's all about, connecting the dots, weaving together the physical evidence with their statements, their reactions. It's like creating this tapestry.
Yeah.
With each thread representing a piece of the puzzle.
I love that analogy. And as Detective Jones meticulously gathers those threads, like a clear picture starts to emerge. And that picture points to a suspect who, might have been hiding in plain sight all along. Okay, so we've analyzed all the clues, we dissected the alibis, scrutinized everybody's reactions. So now, for the moment of truth, who does Detective Jones actually accuse?
Well, after carefully considering everything, all the evidence, Detective Jones, he makes this kind of surprising accusation.
Okay.
He points the finger not at the nervous guest or the flustered maid, but at Mr. Thomas.
Wow, the butler.
The seemingly unflappable Mr. Thomas, the butler.
I gotta admit, even I did not see that coming.
Really?
Yeah, I was so focused on like those more obvious signs of guilt, I completely overlooked just like the quiet, calculated demeanor of Mr. Thomas.
Yeah, that's exactly what makes this case so compelling. It reminds us that appearances can be deceiving and that the most unassuming person, can sometimes be the mastermind behind it all.
So how does Mr. Thomas react when he's accused? Does he maintain his innocence, or does he finally crack under pressure?
Surprisingly, Mr. Thomas, he confesses.
Wow, really?
He admits to meticulously planning and executing this whole theft, using his knowledge of the hotel, his position, everything to his advantage. He even reveals how he staged the scene to make it look like an outside job, planting that muddy footprint to mislead the investigation.
So that red fabric, it really was from his uniform.
It was. He was so clever in the way that he, offered that explanation. It was almost like he was daring Detective Jones to suspect him.
Yeah, like a challenge almost.
Exactly. He was playing on that classic butler did it trope, knowing that they often dismiss the butler as just a background character.
It's just got him there, yeah.
But in this case, the seemingly insignificant butler was actually the criminal mastermind.
This case really highlights just how important it is to challenge our assumptions. To look beyond just the obvious. Who would have thought that the calmest, most collected person in the room would be the guilty one?
It's such a valuable lesson, not just in solving mysteries, but in everyday life. Mm-hmm. Think about a time when you made a judgment based on first impressions or preconceived notions. Did you consider everything? Did you look at all the angles, or did you jump to conclusions?
Yeah, it makes you realize how easily we can be swayed by our own biases, how important it is to just take a step back, really analyze the situation objectively and consider all the possibilities.
Exactly. Just like Detective Jones, we need to be curious, observant, and willing to question, even our initial instincts. Mm-hmm. Sometimes the truth is hidden in plain sight, but it takes a discerning eye to see it.
So as we wrap up our deep dive into the missing necklace at the Grand Hotel, let's just take a moment to reflect on the lessons we've learned about critical thinking, observation, the dangers of assumptions.
Yeah, the world is full of mysteries, big and small. And by honing our detective skills, we can become more discerning thinkers, more perceptive observers, and just overall more confident in our decisions.
So the next time you're faced with a puzzling situation, channel your inner Detective Jones. Ask questions, examine the evidence, and don't be afraid to challenge the obvious. You might be surprised by what you discover.
All right, so today we're diving deep into the life and career of Alain Delon.
Ooh, exciting.
For an actor who is so famous for his looks, there's a surprising amount of depth to this guy.
Yeah, and drama, I mean, his life story could be a movie itself.
Right. I mean, you requested this deep dive, so I know you're into classic film.
Huge fan.
And Delon is like French cinema royalty.
Totally.
But as we'll see, there's so much more to him than just a pretty face.
Oh, absolutely. You know, what fascinates me about Delon is that even though he's remembered for his looks, his life was full of these dramatic twists and turns, and it all started with a childhood that was anything but glamorous.
Okay, so let's rewind all the way back. Turbulent beginnings, right?
Yes.
How did his early years shape the man he became?
Well, picture this. Little Alain, born in 1935.
Okay.
Parents divorced when he's just 4 years old.
Wow.
Shuffled between foster families, different schools, no stability.
So he was dealing with a lot at a young age.
Yeah. And you can see echoes of this kind of chaotic upbringing in the characters he plays later on.
Yeah.
You know, often emotionally guarded, withdrawn. It's like that early instability just infused this intensity into his acting.
That's interesting. You know, it's not always clear how an actor's personal life affects their work. But in Delon's case, it seems like those early experiences really did shape his persona.
Absolutely.
But before he's even on a film set, there's another formative experience.
Right.
The French Navy and the First Indochina War.
Right.
And knowing how much you love his Purple Noon, his breakthrough role.
The one that launched him, right?
Which really did.
Yeah, Purple Noon. Adaptation of Patricia Highsmith's novel, The Talented Mr. Ripley.
Oh, I love that book.
It's so good.
Yeah.
It's this captivating story, deceit, moral ambiguity, chilling charisma. And Delon, he just embodies Tom Ripley.
Really becomes him.
He becomes him, yeah, and with this unsettling charm that you can't take your eyes off of.
I've heard some critics say that Delon was just playing himself in Purple Noon, like typecast, you know?
It's interesting, isn't it? I mean, Delon's natural charisma is definitely there.
Yeah.
But I think he brings a depth to Ripley that goes beyond just charm. He captures that manipulative nature, the darkness underneath, and it creates this truly multi-layered performance.
So it's more than just surface level.
Way more.
And the film was a huge success, critically and commercially, and it launched Delon to the forefront of European cinema.
Totally.
Then just a few years later, 1963, he cements his place as a legend with The Leopard.
The Leopard. Okay, this is an epic historical drama.
Huge film.
Lucio Visconti directing. Delon acting alongside giants. Burt Lancaster, Claudia Cardinale.
I mean, you've probably seen clips. It's visually stunning.
Beautiful. And Delon, breathtaking performance.
I've heard it said that The Leopard made him synonymous with French cinema. Would you agree?
Definitely. I mean, it catapulted him to international fame, made him one of the most sought-after actors of his generation. But you know what?
What?
Delon was far from a one-trick pony.
Right. Let's get into that. He was known for his range.
His range was remarkable.
So let's dive into some of those roles that show off his versatility. He wasn't afraid to tackle different genres, was he?
No, not at all. Let's start with Rocco and His Brothers, also came out in 1960.
Oh, wow. Same year as Purple Noon.
Powerful drama, family, loyalty, tragedy, all set against post-war Italy. Imagine yourself transported to that time, that place, the grit, the desperation. You can almost feel it. And Delon's performance as Rocco, the moral center of the family, is just raw and moving.
It sounds intense.
It stays with you long after the credits roll.
Then Le Samouraï in 1967, directed by Jean-Pierre Melville.
Oh, yes.
Master of French noir. And this film, it's just iconic. What makes his portrayal of the hitman so compelling?
He plays Jeff Costello, this solitary, almost mythical hitman, and he does it with this cool precision, economy of movement that's just mesmerizing, but there's this underlying vulnerability too.
Like hidden depths.
Exactly, and it's that duality, that complexity that makes his characters so fascinating.
Okay, and we can't forget La Piscine, 1969, a really sensual psychological drama where he stars alongside Romy Schneider. And, you know, you can't talk about this film without mentioning their real-life romance.
Oh, right. That chemistry, electric.
It must have just added fuel to the fire of their public image.
Totally. The film itself is a classic, and it showcases another side of Delon's talent.
Really shows his range.
Absolutely a must-see for any Delon fan.
And that same year, he's in The Sicilian Clan, I mean, this really shows he can do action, crime thrillers, and bring that same intensity he had in his dramatic roles.
Oh, he nails it.
Yeah.
He's totally believable as Roger Sarté, this cunning, ruthless criminal. And it reminds us that Delon wasn't afraid to explore, to push those boundaries. He could be charming, dangerous, vulnerable, you name it.
He really ran the gamut.
He did.
Yeah.
But, he wasn't just interested in these darker roles. He was drawn to complex characters, the morally ambiguous ones.
Right.
And that led him to Mr. Klein in '76, a haunting tale set in Nazi-occupied France.
Okay, Mr. Klein. This is a masterpiece.
It really is. It stays with you. Delon plays Robert Klein, a man caught in this web of mistaken identity during a truly horrific period in history.
John.
And his performance, it captures that growing fear, the desperation. He's trying to prove his innocence.
It's a really powerful story.
Oh, and it earned him a Caesar Award for Best Actor. Well-deserved.
So clearly Alain Delon was way more than just a pretty face.
Oh,
he was a dedicated artist who really crafted his roles with incredible depth.
Absolutely. And his life off-screen, just as compelling. Filled with these passionate romances and this drive to build a legacy beyond acting.
Okay, this is really interesting.
It's fascinating. I think you'll really enjoy this next part.
All right, we've covered a lot. Why don't we take a moment to absorb all that, and when we come back, we'll explore the man behind the mask, his personal life, his ventures beyond the world of cinema.
I can't wait.
Okay, so we've talked about Delon's rough childhood, his incredible rise to fame, and how versatile he was as an actor. But there's another piece to this puzzle, right? His personal life. I think you'll find this really interesting, especially with your interest in, the human side of these larger-than-life figures.
It's definitely as dramatic as any of his movies. I mean, his romances were legendary, especially with Romy Schneider.
Oh, Romy Schneider, what a story.
Right. It totally captivated the public, intense passion, but also, heartbreak in the end. It's like a movie in itself. And I bet their on-screen chemistry, like in La Piscine, just added to the public fascination with their real-life relationship.
Oh, for sure. I mean, it was a whirlwind, exhilarating highs and crushing lows. It's interesting, right, how often that kind of intense passion goes hand in hand with creative people.
Yeah, and even though it ended, their relationship definitely left a mark on both of them.
No doubt.
And later, Delon married Natalie Delon, and they had a son, Anthony.
Right. Another layer of intrigue in his already, fascinating personal life. They were this glamorous couple, but even that ended in divorce. Yeah. It really makes you think about how tough it is to keep relationships going under the spotlight, all that pressure.
Always being watched. But here's what I find interesting. Despite all the ups and downs in his relationships, Delon always talked about how important family was to him.
Yeah.
It almost seems like a contradiction, right? Because his public image was always this lone wolf. It is. It's fascinating, right? He called himself a lone wolf, but family was like this anchor for him. He had 4 kids total, and even with the inevitable ups and downs, he stayed close with them. It shows a depth, a commitment to family that you might not expect.
So we've got this picture, right? Difficult childhood, rise to stardom, diverse roles, complex personal life. But there's this other side to Alain Delon that often gets missed, his business sense. This might surprise you, but he wasn't just an artist. He was a pretty savvy entrepreneur.
Yeah. Delon understood the power of his image, and he built the successful brand. Perfumes, watches, accessories. He had this impeccable taste, and he turned it into a real empire.
Like he created a brand out of his own style. Do you think that surprised people?
Maybe those who only knew him from his movies? It speaks to another side of him. Ambition, creativity, and this desire to build something that would last, something beyond acting. He wasn't content to just be a face on screen. He wanted to create.
And speaking of legacy, he did rack up quite a few awards, didn't he?
Oh, absolutely. He won a César Award, which is basically the French Oscar, Best Actor for Mr. Klein. And then in 2019, he got the Palme d'Honneur at Cannes,
wow,
which is a Lifetime Achievement Award, recognizing his huge contributions to cinema. It's one of the biggest honors in film, It's not just about one performance. It's about a whole career devoted to acting.
That's amazing. From a troubled kid to an international icon, recognized for his art and his business smarts. But he didn't totally disappear after getting those awards, did he?
No, he kind of gradually retired from acting, fewer films after the 90s, but his impact is undeniable. He's a legend. His performances, that look in his eyes, his effortless style, they still inspire people today. And he's been pretty open about aging, about death, about the wisdom that comes with living a full life. It gives you a glimpse into the man behind the image, someone who experienced incredible success, but also personal struggles.
It sounds like he always kept people's attention. Earlier you mentioned how he often talked about feeling lonely. I think that's a really interesting thread to pull on, especially when you think about the psychology of fame, which I know you're interested in.
Definitely. I mean, here's a guy who had it all: fame, success, wealth. But he often talked about this deep sense of solitude. It's like the thing he was seeking, the recognition, somehow led to this feeling of being alone, even surrounded by fans.
Yeah, it's strange, right? Like wanting fame, wanting to be validated by others could actually lead to more loneliness. It makes you wonder about the real price of fame, what you have to give up to get it. Do you think this feeling of being alone was just part of who Delon was? Or did it come from the life he chose, the path he took?
That's a tough one. It could be a little of both, right? His childhood, the instability, not having those strong relationships early on, maybe that contributed to a sense of detachment. And then being an actor, always in the public eye, that can create a distance between the person and the image. Always being watched, having to maintain this persona, it can make it hard to really connect with people.
Okay, so we've explored so much of Alain Delon's life, his career, the highs and lows, the good and the bad. But there's this big question that always seems to come up. And it's a question that Delon himself struggled with.
Oh, totally.
What does it all mean?
Right. It's that thing, when you look at someone who's achieved so much fame, success, and you wonder,
Like, what's the point of it all?
Yeah. And for Delon, even with all the adoration, the wealth, he often talked about feeling alone.
It's almost a paradox, right?
It is.
Like chasing fame and validation could lead to feeling more isolated.
Exactly.
It really makes you think about what you have to sacrifice for that kind of recognition.
Yeah, the cost of it all.
Do you think this loneliness was just part of Delon's personality, or was it a consequence of, the life he lived?
It's a great question. Maybe both. I mean, think about his childhood.
Right. So rough.
So unstable, not having those strong, loving relationships early on. It could have made it hard for him to really connect with people.
And then being an actor,
Right.
It's all about image. You can put up a wall between the real person
Yeah.
and the public persona.
Totally. Constantly being watched, having to be on all the time. It makes it tough to just be yourself.
So even with all the success, the talent, there can still be this inner turmoil,
Absolutely.
this search for something more.
It makes those bigger-than-life figures more relatable,
You start to see them as human beings, not just icons.
Yeah, they have struggles too.
Do you think when Delon talked about this feeling of loneliness, did it resonate with his audience?
Oh, I think so. It made him vulnerable,
Yeah.
Like under that cool, handsome exterior, there was this fragility.
It makes him more real.
Exactly. It makes him more human, but it also kind of adds to the mystery.
Right. It's complex.
And I think it resonated because we all want to connect with others, to find meaning.
It's a universal thing.
We all want something that goes beyond the fleeting nature of fame,
It brings us back to why we're having this conversation in the first place.
Right.
It's not just about the movies or the awards. It's about understanding who Alain Delon really was.
The man behind the image.
The complexities, the search for meaning.
Yeah.
As we wrap this up, what do you think his legacy is? What will he be remembered for?
He'll be remembered for those incredible performances.
Oh, absolutely.
In those iconic films, but also, I think for his honesty,
Yeah.
for talking about the downsides of fame, that loneliness.
It's not something people usually talk about.
He didn't shy away from it. He showed us a glimpse of what it's really like, and I think that's powerful.
It reminds us that success doesn't solve everything.
Right.
That even those who seem to have it all still struggle.
We're all human. We all have those moments.
I hope this deep dive gave you a deeper appreciation for Alain Delon.
Me too.
Not just as an actor, but as a person, as a man who lived a really full, really complex life.
I think he was a true cinematic icon, but more than that, he was a human being who was honest about his experiences, about the good and the bad.
That's a great way to put it. Well, on that note, we're going to wrap up this deep dive into the world of Alain Delon.
It's been a pleasure.
Thank you so much for joining us, and we'll see you next time for another fascinating deep dive.